I ended up in the hospital because of the pain and the swelling in my foot. And what about a week later? No toes.
Save My Piggies, your life, your limb, your story, with host Kim McNicholas.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special Save My Piggies episode. We are with Dr. Matthew Mitchell, and we also have Larry and his lovely bride, Yolanda, here. And they are in Fort Worth, Texas. And we wanted to hear your experience because, with PAD, starting from the very beginning, because so many patients learn from this series that others can relate to this disease. And we also want to share with other doctors and clinicians what is it like to actually experience this disease and the symptoms and why it's so important that we do more to get people diagnosed sooner and treated sooner. So thank you so much for your courage and sharing the story and helping so many people who have this disease and potentially future people who have this disease get treated sooner. So bring us back to the very beginning, the day before you had any symptom of PAD. Tell us when this was and what life was like for you. What were you doing at the time that you're not able to do or weren't able to do once you did have that first onset of leg cramps?
Well, I believe the first time was probably snow skiing. I used to snow ski on a regular basis, and then all of a sudden, my legs just started cramping up on me, and I thought it was just I was out of shape. I would go home and I'd do exercises and stuff so I could get out and ski again, but it never seemed to get any better. So eventually, I guess it developed into other problems with my heart, blockage and stuff like that. I ended up having heart surgery, came out of that.
Oh, wow.
And
So what was the timeline between the first onset of those leg cramps and ultimately your diagnosis of heart disease? Because 3 in 5 people who suffer a heart attack have PAD, and we always say if only a doctor would take 2 fingers and 2 seconds to feel those leg pulses, life and limb could be saved.
well, it was actually the first incident that where I noticed the leg problem was probably 20 years prior to my heart attack.
Oh, really?
I just, yes, but I've always been pretty active, softball and running and stuff like that. So I guess I was doing softball and outdoor activities pretty much until my heart attack,
Yeah.
and then that kind of put an end to that.
What did
But
you do for those leg cramps? You just lived with the leg cramps? Did you ever talk to your doctor about those leg cramps?
actually, no, I never went to the doctor about the leg cramps because I thought it was just hydration and other symptoms that you have all your life basically.
Yeah.
But I urge everybody to get it checked out now because it does lead to some major problems.
Yolanda, did you ever wonder about talking to the doctor about these leg cramps? Or was it that, well, when he was active, he felt the leg cramps. When he walked, he felt the leg cramps, but they would ease at rest. And so it must be hydration. It must be that he is just out of shape.
Well, he had complained. I had seen him because he'd always very active, and we used to go dancing all the time. I'm talking, what, Friday and Saturday night
Every Friday and Saturday.
dancing. Then I started noticing because at times he would complain about the leg cramps. So I would pull out Vicks and I would rub his legs and massage them, a good, what, 30 minutes, and I'd put some socks on him, hoping that the mentholatum would go into
And it did ease the pain,
and it would
but
ease the pain.
it didn't go away.
But it just, didn't really think that it was going to be this serious.
Right.
And
So
so not once did you talk to the doctor until the point, literally, you did this for what, 20 years?
yeah, basically.
Well,
And
and
Wow.
the reason I didn't, because I have told Larry, as kids, I'm from a large family. There's 5 sisters and 5 brothers. And growing up, all of us, after playing outside, we're all a bunch of little kids. My mom, we would all cry during the night because our legs hurt. And she would rub Vicks on us. So I just assumed
It was the same thing.
it's the same thing, just natural. Never, didn't even think about questioning, hey, or get a sonogram or
Right.
imaging done.
Never did any of that, actually.
Mm-mm.
And then,
So did you ended up, where were you when you had this heart attack? It seemed to come out of the blue.
yes, it did. I think I was in the backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even realize at the time that I'd had a heart attack. I was actually called to jury service, and I was feeling so bad. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't make it up steps and stuff like that. So I went to the doctor to get an excuse so I wouldn't have to serve on the jury. And he said, "When did you have your heart attack?" And I was like, I didn't know I had one. So I was very
I'm
fortunate in
guessing that you
that.
had some blood work that showed that you had a heart attack.
Yes, he was curious as to why. Originally, he was going to diagnose me with emphysema, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. And then after doing the blood work and the testing, he said, "You've had a heart attack, and when did you have it?" And it was like, gosh, I don't know. I didn't even know I'd had one.
Oh my goodness. And so what was the treatment at that point? And at what point did you ultimately end up figuring out there was something more than just activity that was causing those leg cramps?
Oh gosh. Well, I guess um, after the heart surgery, I had I don't know, just moving around the house, it just seemed like my leg pain
It started
was constant.
increasing.
Yeah,
It
just
was increasing.
all the time. And it was like I gotta get something done about my
Yeah.
legs.
Yeah, he was having a lot of trouble walking and moving around the backyard, and I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? There is something going on. You know,
And
we
Vicks
thought
was
it was,
not fixing it.
and
No,
Vicks
it
was
didn't
not
fix it.
fixing it. No, man.
But
So,
Dr. Mitchell came on the scene, I guess, after the doctor that performed my uh, heart surgery
mm,
suggested I see Dr. Mitchell.
mm,
And I think Dr. Mitchell ended up putting a couple of stents in my legs
mm,
eventually, which it just got to the point where it was unbearable to walk. And then after those stents, they worked out pretty good. But then, of course, I guess, maybe a year after the initial stents were put in,
yeah.
it seemed like it was bad again, and I couldn't hardly walk. I was limping real bad, used a cane. And Dr. Mitchell said, "I'm going to try something new on you, if you don't mind." I said,
Oh,
"What is it?"
fantastic. And we'll get to the new technology and the advanced treatment method in a moment, but welcome, Dr. Mitchell.
Thanks.
Tell me about the first time that you saw Larry and his wife, Yolanda. This is a typical story that you hear where patients go many, many years with these leg cramps that continue to progress. The patient ends up with a heart attack, and it's only then that they become a little bit more sedentary and they notice that every time they get up to try and walk, the pain is getting progressively worse.
Yeah, so I met Larry back in 2021, and he was referred to me, as he mentioned, by the cardiologist, who's a colleague of mine. I do a lot of work with him, who actually did a coronary bypass on you, I believe. Is that correct? Heart
That's
surgery?
correct.
Yeah.
Mm.
Excuse me. Also, I want to know what kind of dancing you were doing.
Yeah.
With hip hop or break dancing, or what were you guys doing?
Oh,
The break
no,
dancing.
we're
Yeah,
country
we
western
country
dancers, of
western,
course.
and let me tell you, he's the first
Okay.
person I've known that can do the polka, and he's really good at it.
Nice.
We We like most of the dancing outside of hip hop and stuff like that. We don't do
Yeah.
much break
No,
dancing.
no popping and locking then. Okay, you got it.
Maybe a little tango
Uh,
once in a while.
Bunny hop once in a while. Bunny hop.
But so he came to me and we did some work on his legs back in 2022. And at the time, he had a pretty long occlusion of his SFAs, both of them, about 25 centimeters in length, really calcified. And so had some disease in his pelvis, which we addressed at that time. And then we decided that maybe the best thing to do was a bypass. And so the surgeon that sent him to me after we did some work in his pelvis ended up doing surgical bypasses on both legs. And then in 2023, the left leg started giving him trouble, and he came back to me, and the bypass was I believe it was down or mostly down. I had to clean it out. There was an issue where the bypass was attached distally or at the lower end of it. We addressed that, and he also had a popliteal artery occlusion, basically below the
Behind
bypass.
the
So
knee.
we fixed that. Excuse me. And at that time, I had to, fix the bypass. Ended up having to put a stent in his popliteal artery because it was occluded, and that was the only thing that was going to work. That basically bought him some more time, but eventually that went down as well. And so when he came back to me this last time, his surgical bypass was occluded, his popliteal artery was occluded.
Oh,
And
wow.
so he had this entire, really long segment occlusion. Fortunately, he had collaterals that were reconstituting below the popliteal, but just wasn't sufficient for, his daily activities. He had pretty severe claudication. And so that's where
And
the
so
detour
it
comes in.
used to be that these bypasses seem to last a lot longer. What is it about this disease today that seems different than it was, let's say, 20 years ago? Because I have patients that have had fempop, femtib bypasses from thigh to knee, thigh to calf, and they're lasting, 10 to 20 years. But I'm seeing more and more of the ones done in just the last few years go down. And we're seeing a lot more patients with clotting disorders that are
Yep.
causing these bypasses to go down. I don't know if it was the case with Larry or if that's really what you're seeing, but that's what I'm seeing with our patients.
Yeah, I see, I think that about the average patency is below 80% once you start looking at all the numbers at 3 years for a surgical bypass. I think, yeah, there's hypercoagulable states seem to be fairly prevalent, and we have a lot of patients on antiplatelet therapy and anticoagulation. I
Mhm.
think autologous vein grafts do better than Dacron, and Larry, had a Dacron graft. Those tend to not perform as well. So I think there were some other things. I can't remember, lifestyle modifications. If you, Larry, I can't remember. Were you smoking at the time, or had you stopped, or was that still part of an issue?
Yeah, I was smoking at the time. Yeah,
Oh, you were
self-care.
still smoking. So even after the heart attack, you were still smoking.
Right.
And
So I think
when
that,
did you, because that'll do it. We have another patient that is, he was on his way to the emergency room the other night, goes into the other doctor, and the doctor says, well, your vessels are still spasming. That's why you're ending up with the wounds. That's why the blood's not getting to your foot. And so you need to stop today because with your body, the smoking is literally causing the vessels to spasm, and it's not just blockages. You're ending up with something a little bit of a different presentation known as Berger's disease, which is just constricting those vessels. And Dr. Mitchell, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a physician
yeah,
or clinician, but this is what I'm told.
yeah, it's Berger's thromboangiitis obliterans, I think is the technical term for it. The vessels, they just kind of disappear. It affects the extremities. It's a really, to reverse it, you really have to stop smoking. So that's, Larry didn't have that, but that's on the spectrum of, vascular disease that's related to smoking. So I think that might have played a role in his bypass, this whole process continuing with him. And
I
so that,
think that's important to talk about just a little bit, just in general, for those who are watching, to understand the mechanism of action by which the continuing to smoke once you've had the work done. Um, how does that work? Why is smoking worse once you've continued, once you've had the work done, the bypasses, the stents placed?
because the process just continues, the process that got you to that point With the smoking is, obviously one lifestyle modification that you can do. There's like, diabetes, controlling your diabetes, your A1C down, that sort of stuff. But smoking is, the number one cause, I think, in my experience, and I encourage people, everyone I see, to stop smoking if they are. But it's just you're putting a Band-Aid on a problem that's not going away until you address, and modify some of those lifestyle choices that lead, contribute to this whole disease process.
And Larry, at what point did you decide to quit? When did you kind of cut that cord?
I guess I was
Just right
after my heart attack.
Yeah, the heart
Yeah.
attack.
That kind of scared me or shook me up a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
And were you also pre-diabetic, type 2 diabetic as well?
I am diabetic, so, and I found that out the same time I had my heart attack.
Okay.
So I
So type
never
2.
been treated. Right. Is that type 2 or type 1?
Type 2.
And had they ever, and this is one of the things that I always am concerned with, did they put you in any sort of cardio rehab where you learned about, better dietary habits, also exercise as medicine?
Yeah, they assigned me a nutritionist, I think, and she would come by every day while I was in rehab from the surgery, and she would go over diets with me and things I could do to kind of improve the situation. So
Yolanda, are you
they
keeping
took.
him in check now?
Oh, yes.
She does a good job.
And so, with all of these fail, it does take a little while once you have quit, right, Dr. Mitchell, for the body to clear out, all of the continued damage, right, that the smoking was doing. And so you finally kind of got to a point where everything was going down and you just had to kind of play a little catch up,
Yeah,
right, with the disease.
exactly.
What did you do next that has led him to where he is now? And it's been what, about a year since your last procedure?
Almost a year. Yeah, coming Italy, February, it'll be a year. So
Oh, wow.
where he seems like he's doing pretty good. So when he came back to us, as I mentioned, the bypass was down, the popliteal artery was occluded, so he had reconstituted, fortunately, his distal popliteal and his tibial vessels. He had some tibial disease. I think he's got 2-vessel runoff, but that's sufficient. And so new technology is available now that basically permits us to do an endovascular bypass where I can utilize the femoral vein in the thigh as the conduit for the actual stent. And so what that allowed me to do was, basically redo a bypass without him having to have open surgery. I think that, having to revise a surgical bypass is not a great option for most people. So by this technology basically accomplished the same thing, allowed me to bypass the occluded SFA, the occluded popliteal artery and stent, and accomplish the same thing that a bypass would have without a major surgery. So the technology didn't exist, back when he had his original bypasses. If it had, I think that would have been our first choice. But so far, it's been great.
So this is an option even after someone has had a bypass. Are there any limitations
I
or
think it's a
parameters
great
around that?
option for a great option for someone who's had a surgical bypass, because revising that is another surgery, another bypass. That's a massive scar tissue. So you can avoid all of that with this. And actually the patency of this is superior at 3 years to a surgical bypass. So there's a lot of advantages to it. You avoid the surgery, you're not having to revise something that's already a whole bunch of scar tissue, et cetera. And the patency is actually better.
And so, Larry, you've had stents placed, you had 2 regular surgical bypasses, and you've had Dr. Mitchell go in to try and open things up, open the bypasses up, open the arteries up, the stents up. And finally, this minimally invasive bypass, called P.A.D or the detour system. At any point, you know, did you feel any relief along the way with all of these procedures that got you back on your feet and walking?
I did feel temporary relief, but that's just what it was, temporary. I mean, uh, as time progressed, the pain just started coming back and it got worse and worse. And that's why I ended up, of course, coming back to Dr. Mitchell because, I mean, he did great work because once you get out of that pain, it's just heaven sent. It's like, gosh, I can walk again. Things are great. And I've been in a wheelchair before. I've been with a walker before.
Oh, wow.
And coming back to just
It's a far
standing
cry from
upright.
dancing and doing the tango, and doing the
Oh,
tush
yeah.
push,
Well, I haven't been back doing
watermelon
that
crawl.
yet, but we're planning on it. So we'll just play it as it comes.
And so, did it feel any different after this bypass versus the other procedures?
Actually, the relief from the pain was the biggest thing about the procedure, I guess, because um, unlike the ones, well, of course, it's only been a year,
Yeah.
and we're still giving it time, but I haven't had near the recovery time with this procedure that he did, and things have been going really pretty good. So,
Yeah,
we got nothing
we're
to
keeping an eye on it too.
about.
So we check it, periodically with ultrasound. So if it starts to act up,
Yeah,
we'll go in and deal
he
with
keeps
it.
bigger checks on me. So.
Yeah.
And
But
so, with this, is it a lot easier to go in with this type of minimally invasive bypass to do a revision or to clear it out than it is to deal with a surgical bypass and to revision with that?
I haven't had to do it yet, but I would think so because
That's
you're not
good.
dealing with a surgical anastomosis that really becomes scarred and narrowed because it almost always occurs at those 2 points in the bypass, either the top, the bottom, or both. And that can be pretty difficult and challenging to sort of burrow through. So I would think that this would be less difficult to clean one of these out. Hopefully we keep tabs on it with ultrasound. And if there's any change in the Doppler, it suggests there's maybe something going on with it starting to narrow a bit, and go in and touch it up with a balloon and keep it open that way without getting to the point that we're having to basically do a thrombectomy and clean it out. We want to avoid that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And part of that and part of the prevention, I'm sure you've gotten him on the perfect medication cocktail, right? And then number two, it's getting that type 2 diabetes under control. No breads, no pasta, no sugar. I'm sure it's just all vegetables and some nice wild caught fish for dinner every single night, right, Yolanda?
Right. No, he usually does pretty good. Every time we go to the doctor and have blood work done, his numbers are always good.
Pretty good.
The AC one is always really
A1C.
good. Yeah.
We did have a little bit of an issue with the blood thinners, right?
Oh,
I
yes.
put him on some blood thinners after this, and
Eloquence nearly did me in.
yeah, we had to tweak those a little bit and cut back on him. He had some bleeding issues from being on the blood thinners, and so we've had to adjust that. But he's still doing great, and that's just it's just what happens. They're blood thinners, and the risk of being on the blood thinners that it causes you to bleed. So we had to make some adjustments there, but otherwise, no issues so far.
But I
Right.
think that it's important to note with situations like that. This is why patients need to be forthcoming with their doctors and make sure to report the symptoms, whatever's going on, sooner rather than later, so you have a chance to rectify it. I mean, this is a progressive disease. There's a lot that happens around it, a lot of different comorbidities and such. We always say that you never find, if you have sick legs, you don't find it on a healthy person. So you have to constantly be in touch and on top of it, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, Larry, Yolanda, when do you think you're going to be getting back to some of that line dancing? Any thought, any hope of that now?
Well, there's always hope.
Yeah, there's always hope.
So,
But yeah, we do a little dancing around.
Yeah,
the
we
pool.
mess around a little bit at the house now. We're not getting that on the dance floor yet. So,
No, but that's a far cry from where you were just a year
yeah.
ago.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And you haven't been dancing in several years. And so the fact that you're even dancing around the house, that's a pretty big deal.
That is a great improvement. Yes. Just the fact that I
Yolanda,
feel like dancing.
do you remember that moment, Yolanda, where that first where after that procedure a year ago where he said, hey, let me twirl you around the living room with some music playing in the background?
We were out on the patio.
We were out on the patio and we were dancing and I looked at him and I told him, I go, you know what? Dancing with you is like being in a carousel up in the clouds. So
Wow.
every moment that we get a chance to dance around in the backyard, it's a special treat.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice.
And many, many, many more dances to come. Thank you so much, you both, for being here. Thank you for your courage. Any final takeaways for those who are tuning in and watching this right now? Some advice for other P.A.D. warriors out there? Any messages for physicians or clinicians who are trying to treat P.A.D. patients?
Me? I would just tell everybody, if your legs are cramping up and you feel like you're pretty healthy anyway, get them checked out.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
like for so many years, I thought it was me. I just thought I wasn't taking care of myself properly. But
Yeah, don't take advantage of it thinking you know what, they're just leg cramps. There's a reason why you're getting leg cramps every day, every day. Don't depend on that Vicks because it's not going to
yeah,
work.
it'll relieve it, but it won't
Yeah,
fix it.
and really the other thing would be, we have through all of my family, there's always a family member giving advice. Well, it's because of this, or so many
Yeah,
advices
go to the
that
doctor.
just go to the doctor. Everybody wants to step in and be a doctor without having that degree. Go see a doctor.
And I would just say that, there's very easy screening tests that your family practice doctor can order: ABIs, ultrasounds. If you have any sort of idea or symptoms, don't ignore them. There's very easy things we can do to evaluate, and we don't have to, immediately jump to some sort of invasive test. And then you don't want this to get away from you, where you start with claudication or, leg cramps, and next thing you know, you progress to sores on your feet that aren't healing. And then, the process continues down the road. So get it checked out, and sooner the better.
Imagine 20 years ago when you first started experiencing those leg cramps. If you had gone to the doctor and the doctor would have known to test for peripheral artery disease, would have performed an ankle brachial index or ABI or a leg artery ultrasound, imagine what lifestyle modifications and maybe some medicine and a regimented walking program could have done to stall progression of this disease, not only in your legs, but also in your heart.
I was thinking it might have saved my toes too, because that was a major issue when after my heart surgery, and I had an infection on my foot, and gosh, that was what, a year and a half
Yes.
after the heart surgery. And I was going to a podiatrist, but he never mentioned circulation problems or anything like that. And I ended up in the hospital because of the pain and the swelling in my foot. And what, about a week later, no toes.
Yeah.
So they said,
And
that's
at
when
what point,
house.
following the transmetatarsal amputation, I'm imagining, did you ultimately see Dr. Mitchell? Because I'm concerned now looking back, why did they not test you for peripheral artery disease prior to the transmetatarsal amputation?
That's a good question. I couldn't answer that one.
And you probably, Dr. Mitchell, can't answer whether or not those toes could have been saved if you would have gotten blood flow prior to that amputation. I mean,
Correct.
there are all kinds of different advanced tools and techniques for restoring blood flow, even clear into the feet, clear to the toes.
Based on what the picture looked like when he came to me, I think we probably could have done something. But then, sort of hindsight's 2020, and I can't imagine that happening now, that you went to a podiatrist and you have a non-healing wound on your foot and they wouldn't, at least consider peripheral vascular disease. But, hopefully that's not the case anymore.
No, I mean that would be great advice for any patient. If you have a wound on your foot, you've had leg cramps in the past, but even neuropathy, even a little burning or tingling or numbness in your foot, get that blood flow checked and say no to amputation unless your life is on the line. Say no to amputation until you can get those arteries checked. And if you even if you are going to have the amputation, have those arteries checked because society guidelines dictate by both the AHA, the American Heart Association, and Society for Vascular Surgery that you need to at least try to restore inline flow prior to any amputation. So really, really important. I feel like we should have gotten to this a little bit earlier in the interview. Hopefully everyone has stuck around to see this. At least it seems to be a happier ending with both of you now dancing, even without a few toes. Life still goes on.
For sure. You're doing
Thanks everyone
okay.
for joining us. And we really appreciate you here. And we want to hear that you're out doing the watermelon crawl in another year.
Maybe.
Maybe there are
We'll
some
give it
newer
a try.
line dances that you can do. I heard Beyonce even has some sort of country song out there
Oh,
that
yeah.
people
Oh,
are line dancing.
yeah. I've heard that too. Crazy.